Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you guys so much for joining us here on this edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Of course, you're gabbing with the one and only Mr. CeeLo. Gabbers, I hope you guys are doing great. I am doing great. It's very cold as a cold front is sweeping across the southeast. I hope you guys are all bundled up. And while I'm here, make sure you guys take an opportunity to support somebody that's out there that's homeless. You never know. You may be entertaining a veteran whom has served this country. I had the privilege of doing that earlier this week. So, guys, trust me. It's just a couple of dollars. Maybe it's worth a cup of coffee, maybe a soda, or maybe a burger. You know, help the homeless out there. Because God knows I've been very fortunate. And so has my family, and so has yours. Especially with the seasons coming up. Giving is always a beautiful thing. But let us get into the action as, guys, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came into week number 15 hoping they could get back on track. I think they were like losers of 5 of their last 6. And what better opponent to be coming into Raymond James Stadium than the Atlanta Falcons? The Falcons, a team that many people are suspecting are going to say adios to Raheem Morris. But if the Falcons had anything to say about it, that wasn't going to happen. But let us go to the breakdown as the Atlanta Falcons were able to come into Raymond James and, as you all know, pull out a 1-point victory on a walk-off field goal that nobody expected. Now, I want you guys to understand something. Mr. CeeLo does not just talk to be talking. I have said numerous times that a gentleman by the name of Kyle Pitts has just been undervalued. And he showed up and showed out with one of the most dominating performances by a tight end we've seen in almost ever. With 11 catches, 166 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Now, I will tell you this. A lot of you out there in Atlanta world have been saying this guy is a bust. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and say it like this. Stop it. Because I had so many Falcon fans stop me, and if many of you don't know, I live in Georgia. So I had so many of them telling me, bro, he finally showed up. No, he was finally given the opportunity to excel. And so many people do not understand that a receiver or a tight end or whatever the case may be is only as good or as effective as the quarterback or the scheme. I don't know what it's going to take for so many people to understand that this guy is a weapon. So many people, bust. No, it's the Falcons. I'm just going to keep it honest. I mean, you know, Drake London has been out the last 3 to 4 weeks and probably out for the foreseeable future. But you cannot wait until a guy is missing from your lineup to feature him. See, because now he's worked out his 5th-year option. What's going to happen next year? What's going to happen? Somebody going to give him the big dollars to go. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. It would not surprise me if it was one Kansas City. With Travis Kelce retiring, what better to give him a new tight end? And Bijan Robinson was his same usual self with 19 carries, 93 yards, and a touchdown. And see, when you really start breaking down how the Atlanta Falcons were able to gauge this football game, they used their best players. And honestly, this is where I think Michael Penix and the Atlanta brass need to realize. You can get Drake London the football. You can get Bijan Robinson the ball. But then look here. You got Kyle Pitts, 11 catches on 12 targets. You got Sills the ball 6 times. You got Darnell Mooney the ball 3 times. And he had 6 targets. Sills had 10 targets. You could still give those targets to one Drake London. This is why I don't understand why you had to wait until Drake London was on the sideline. This is really the first game you said, okay, let's feature Kyle Pitts. And it worked out. The ultimate reality for the Buccaneers is you gave up 27 first downs to this Atlanta Falcons team. Everything was almost even. The Falcons had the ball 3 more minutes in time of possession, but they had 19 penalties for 125 yards. How in the world do you have that many penalties and still win the game? Time of possession was important, but then you also have to look at the third down efficiency, in which the Falcons were 5 of 11 and they went 1 for 1 on fourth down. But the total yardage was absolutely massive, 476 to 338. Both teams had 10 drives, but it was the Falcons almost defeating the Bucs by 2 yards per play. And to me, this game was won in the fact that Baker Mayfield did not look comfortable in a lot of situations. I know he threw for 277, but he was sacked 5 times. And a lot of people are going to say, okay, well, Kirk Cousins looked more comfortable. I'm not going to say he looked more comfortable. He looked like his old self. And I think a lot of that was because he was allowed to get Kyle Pitts going. And you did something that you had not done in the previous couple of years, and that's get Kyle Pitts involved. Look, I like Drake London. Be honest with you, I love Drake London. Think y'all made great usage of him, but you have wasted Kyle Pitts. This was the tale of this game right here, is that Tampa Bay came in wondering, where are they going to get their offense from? And it showed, because the Buccaneers had no answer in Mike Evans' return to stop Kyle Pitts. And then on the other end, you've got Bucky Irvin, who's got 60 yards on 16 carries. Not what you want. Now, Rachaad White had a 20-yard breakout, but in essence, the Buccaneers want to run the football. And they only had 88 yards on the ground. Now, in contrast, the Falcons only had 111 yards, but that's 5.3 yards a carry. Algier had 2 carries, one for 9 yards, averaging 9 yards a carry, which is something the Buccaneers are going to have to shore up, because there's been a lot of rumblings in Buccaneer locker rooms that locker room is ready to implode. I hope that's not true. I'm just reporting that's what was heard. I'm not saying that's been confirmed, but there's been rumblings between certain players and I think Vita Vea, I think it was. I don't want to put his name out there and it's incorrect, but I've heard that he hasn't been playing up to his level, because to me, Vita Vea is one of the more dominant defensive tackles in the game. Same thing with Hassan Reddick. I've heard rumblings about him, even though he had the lone sack in the football game for the Buccaneers. But you saw Antonio Winfield pick up 13 tackles. Deion Jones had 8, along with Levante David having 6. But then you look at the Falcons. You had Diablo had a half sack. You had James Pierce Jr., the rookie. He had 2 sacks on the night. And then, of course, you had London and Dorius. They had added sacks. And then, of course, the rookie Jalen Walker also added 1 for a grand total of 5, which is something the Falcons absolutely didn't do last year, was get sacks and, high pressure rate, which allowed Baker to have some issues, which Baker's normally been pretty good at getting out of trouble. Not in this game. The Falcons brought the heat, and they brought it hard. I would say that the game in totality wasn't bad, even though Evans only caught half his targets. He was still showing that he had the dominant feed down the field, 6 catches, 132 yards in his return, 22 yards a catch. Then Emeka Egbuka, 4 catches, 64, average of 16, along with Jalen McMillan, 3 for 38, 19 yards. So they were getting big pumps in the passing game. The problem was that they could not stop Kyle Pitts. And arguably, I would say the Falcons did a great job of throwing off a play action. I didn't get tired of watching it. And I think I've said this somewhat on the show if you guys go back. I know I've missed a couple of weeks, but I've watched the Falcons. They're one of the teams that I'm a homer, so I still watch the Falcons. I'm still not a fan. But they've got weapons that you want to watch. They remind me a lot of the Cincinnati Bengals. They just have to get the play calling right. You've got arguably a superstar tight end and a superstar wide receiver and a superstar running back. There's no reason why this team shouldn't be as much fun to watch as the Kansas City Chiefs, the Los Angeles Rams, Seattle Seahawks, or the 49ers. This team should be fun to watch, and the Falcons need to get it together. Raheem Morris, you need to get it together. More than likely, it won't be your ship. Sorry to say it like that, but I'm thinking that's what it's going to be. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have to get this ship righted, because initially it looked as though the Carolina Panthers were going to maintain first place, but unfortunately Sunday came around and there was another NFC South showdown that didn't go quite as the experts thought it was. But as for this game, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fell in this game, and they were half a game out of first place. They're gonna have to get back to running the football and doing the play action what they used to do. The Falcons stole their playbook, and it was reflective. You saw that the running game was not nearly as efficient for the Buccaneers. They ran for 33 less yards than the Falcons on one extra carry. And yeah, you have to get better production out of the running game if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this defense has got to get it together, because needless to say, this is a defense that did not perform well in this game. Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta running game had them on their heels all game long. And as for the offense, the Atlanta pass rush had the Bucs O-line on their heels. And even Baker Mayfield didn't know what was going on. The Buccaneers need to get this together if they intend on winning the NFC South.